Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Mindset. Today is a Mobic Monday episode. So it's been a long time since I've done a Mobic Monday episode. So today I'm going to be going into BitMobick price updates and why the price has been performing the way it has, and also going into the writings of a major BitMobick community member about stablecoins. So he's written a series of articles about stablecoins, which is extremely topical, not only for cryptocurrency, but for the wider market as well, given the genius Stablecoin Act that was recently passed in the United States. So first, this is a Bitcoin dominance chart. So what does this chart mean? So basically, this chart is the dominance of the price of Bitcoin compared to all the other assets in the cryptocurrency market. So generally, when it is below 50%, it's generally accepted that that is an altcoin season. Now, BitMobick is considered an altcoin. Anything that is not Bitcoin is an altcoin. So what's actually happening here? So if I get my arrows here, it pretty much tells us the general trend of the market. So if I get my arrow here, so when it is going down like this, it's usually an alt season. So we've had two big alt seasons, and we haven't really had an alt season in this particular cryptocurrency cycle yet. So as you can see, when it's below 50%, it's usually considered an altcoin season. So pretty much since the start of, or the end of 2022 and the start of 2023, we were basically in the bear market where everything was going down. So because of that, basically, when the dominance of Bitcoin is going up, it means Bitcoin is dominating the markets. And this is what's happened. So at the moment, we've had nothing but upside for Bitcoin for the last couple of years. And it's been very good for Bitcoin. But for altcoins, it hasn't been all that great. It has been a very select few altcoins that have been doing well. Some of the altcoins that I'm in on Pulse Chain have been doing exceptionally well, but I'm very, very well researched there. So this is something that I like to keep an eye on. But for the most part, the altcoin season has been pretty bland for the wider market. So what we're really waiting to see is when this starts to go back down, because obviously BitMobick hasn't established itself in a way that gives it power while things are going up. So what we want to see is eventually, probably anticipating perhaps even the Bitcoin dominance to get up to about 75%-ish, 70 to 75%, and then start reversing. So once it starts reversing, and it starts reversing significantly, that's when we can expect perhaps we're entering into alt season. And when it's below, it's really confirmed that we're in the alt season. But by then, we're really probably well and truly in the alt season. Like here, we were really well and truly below the alt season. But obviously, when it's below 50%, it's a very good indicator that we're in alt season. So this is one of the reasons why BitMobick price performance has probably not been so crash hot since its inception. So obviously, once it hit a exchange, it became very easy to sell. So before that, it was all peer-to-peer selling. But now it's hit an exchange. And this is the kind of thing that you see a lot of. Basically, you tend to see lots of downtrends when something gets launched, lots and lots of downtrends. What is something that is reasonably positive to see is it seems to have formed a low back in April. So it hasn't gotten any lower. So this is what we call a higher low. So basically, it's formed a higher low. So it goes up, it comes back down, and it forms a low that is higher than the previous low. So this was the first low, or this was the lowest low rather. And then here is a higher low. And then of course, here we have another higher low, and the price is generally heading up. So you can see this trend that is emerging here. So just to make it clear, we've got our higher lows here, and then we have our trend, which is trending up. So it's just basically two ways of showing the same thing. So the trend is showing the higher lows. So this is a good sign. What we don't want to see is for it to form a lower low. So basically, if the price goes below this point or it goes below this point, then it's not so great. Given how long the Bitcoin pump has been going, I'm anticipating now that basically, because this is a fork of Bitcoin and it has a lot of Bitcoin believers in it, I'm thinking that essentially Bitcoin whales are starting to rotate assets from Bitcoin into BitMobick. And so, excuse me, this is what we're starting to see, I believe, in the price charts. And obviously, as the price of Bitcoin goes higher, we should be seeing this continue to go up as they rotate their profits from Bitcoin into BitMobick. So back in April, where was the price of Bitcoin? So again, obviously this shows the total market. So I'm just going to have a look now at just the Bitcoin price. So back in April, what was the price doing in April? And of course, I'm expecting the end of the cycle for Bitcoin around about November. So back in April, where were we? So April, it was really starting to trend up. And actually, wow, okay, interesting. So at the very bottom of the low here, we started to see these assets being rotated into BitMobick. So what is this telling us? This is basically telling us that people here believed, so this is the date here, the 7th of April, this particular week, this candle, and here we saw the bottom around about the 7th of April to the 9th of April. So in the week that there was this recent big low on Bitcoin, perhaps the market was thinking, well, Bitcoin is now topped and I want to start rotating my assets into something else. So they thought it was a top. Then this is usually what happens. This is what markets do. We think we're smart, but generally we end up selling as things are going down and buying as things are going up. It's very difficult to really sell the tops because the greed kind of takes over and you think it's going to keep going and going. So this is something that I'm glad for the first time I've checked this out. So this is what we're seeing the market do. So very, very interesting there. So that's what's going on here. So I'm expecting that this will probably not really fully take off until about October and November when we see a top in Bitcoin, if we see a top in Bitcoin at that particular time. Okay, now, basically, I don't want to say who this is, but I'm sure the Koreans know who this is, but this is a very prominent Bitcoin, well, I wouldn't say he's a Bitcoin whale, but he's a very prominent Bitcoin investor and absolutely a BitMobick whale. So he's Korean. This is a cryptocurrency that has emerged out of Korea. So dollar stablecoin one. This is to denote that it's a series. So dollar stablecoin collateral loans. So everywhere there are always loopholes beyond the reach of government authority, and in the still unregulated world of crypto, this is even more the case. In Australia, you have to pay capital gains tax on any profit made when converting one asset into another. This includes crypto. So buying and selling or swapping one crypto for another, and then again, is not easy. You must convert Bitcoin to Australian dollars, and if there's a profit, you're taxed on the gain the moment the AUD enters your bank account through an exchange. Even if you trade Bitcoin for Ethereum on an exchange, the trade is seen as a taxable event. Ethereum is considered to have been purchased at the higher price relative to your original Bitcoin purchase. And if you try to convert that asset back into AUD without holding it for over a year, if you trade it or swap it within that time, you lose all capital gains tax concessions and pay the full tax rate. So it's only if you're holding for more than a year that you get capital gains concessions, capital gains tax concessions. So short-term crypto trading in Australia is not favorable. In reality, most people probably don't report everything, but the ATO seems to be collecting quite a bit of information from exchanges. And there's always a lingering fear among the public that one day the tax office will crack down and issue large fines all at once. It's already been over 3 years since I bought Bitcoin. I've never used leveraged, only spot purchases, and I haven't sold even 0.1 Bitcoin into AUD. I did liquidate quite a bit for Mobic, but that was more an act of support than an investment move. Since I expect to give back some of the recent gains after this year's flashy banana bull run, so the banana bull run is what's been coined, I believe, by Raoul Pal. I've been planning for months now to sell some Bitcoin, pay the taxes, and rebalance my assets into real estate. Any asset converted into AUD is immediately taxed, and the banking system is tightly monitored by the tax office. So any AUD coming in from a crypto exchange is fully visible to the ATO. Tax avoidance is difficult if it hits the banking system via an exchange. I've been thinking for a long time about how best to deal with this. Then I recalled there are platforms that offer USDT or BTC-backed collateral loans, and I met the CEO of one of these companies a couple of times last year. Of course, we also talked about Mobic, and we agreed to meet more in the future for related matters. Oh, that's bullish. As the terms of these collateral loans continue to improve, I've started to consider using the services since late last year. If the AUD lands in my account, not from a crypto exchange, but from a financial service provider offering loans, I'm freed from capital gains tax. So this is a really important thing to know. This is why I wanted to convert his readings, because I know that he's a very, very, very intelligent businessman and investor. So if the AUD lands in my account, not from a crypto exchange, but from a financial service provider offering loans, I'm freed from capital gains tax. I will, of course, have to pay interest on the loan, but I can offset that against profits from my existing businesses, although this will reduce my taxable business income. Compared to buying a property under my personal name with a mortgage where there are no tax offsets, this approach makes more sense for money I'm going to spend anyway. I'm currently preparing a 2025 to 2026 rebalancing strategy to convert a portion of my Bitcoin holdings into real estate. I always keep an eye on the market, but I've recently started analyzing the property market more closely. That's why my Saturday mornings are busy. My wife and I go around inspecting homes, checking the market atmosphere, gauging the quality of homes, and comparing them with the prices I have in mind. It's been quite a while since I reached a level where I can confidently call myself an expert in real estate, but to maintain this status, I need to keep visiting sites, referencing indicators, and tracking macroeconomic trends to stay sharp. Today, we're already on the 7th house inspection. I wrote this post mid-hustle, and since I sense more important insights may follow, I added 1 to the title to suggest it's part of a series. Since this includes some sensitive discussions about taxes, I'm not posting it here because it's speakers. I figure no one will be watching here, right? Well, people will be watching here. So I thought that was a very interesting read. So it's really good to get it's a BitMobick whale, so it's good to get a BitMobick whale's perspective on the macro environment. And I know that he's a prolific writer and a very well-respected writer amongst the Korean community. So I wanted to start to share his writings. So there is a series. So I'm going to go through each one of those. And like I said, stablecoins. So he was really, really on the pulse. These writings were written months and months ago. So he's been really on the pulse, and he keeps a close eye on macroeconomic environments as well. So I'll continue to read this. So now we know why Bitcoin and BitMobick are doing what they're doing. And now we know relatively when we could start to see a decent run in BitMobick. And it was really good to check the charts. Basically, what we saw was as Bitcoin was dumping, those people probably thought it was the end and then started rotating into BitMobick, which saw a small little price surge. So it does, to me, look like we have hit a bottom. I would imagine that now people are going to continue to rotate Bitcoin into BitMobick as Bitcoin continues to go higher, with the expectation that we really are heading to the end of the bull market and they're going to want to accumulate and get an alt season run in BitMobick. So definitely keep an eye on this asset over the next few months to the end of the year, and let's just see how it goes. Obviously, this is a long-term strategy that I'm investing in BitMobick, and this is obviously not financial advice. So everybody, take care.